Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today, both for this event and for Discoverfest in general. We are on day 3 of a whole week packed full of learning events. We've learned about some business, some marketing. We got some language. We're going to learn some French and German later this week. And today we're going to be learning about how to create a book as an additional revenue stream for your business with Todd Brison. My name is Jonah from Discover. And Todd, how you doing?
I'm not bad. I got my confident pink sweater on, so that's
Love
always a good time, right?
it. Ready to go. Love
Yeah.
it so much. Well, I'm going to set a couple expectations first, and then we'll launch right in. First off, feel free to hop in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from, something you're excited to learn, maybe how you heard about Todd or Discover itself. And also feel free to ask any questions throughout the event, although we will have a dedicated Q&A after Todd's presentation where we'll be able to fully address all of those. So if we don't answer your question right away, it's coming. We'll try and get to all of them near the end. And then also there will be a replay available. So if life happens around you, Todd's moving fast, or you have to get up and go to the bathroom, don't fret. You're not losing anything. It's all going to be available here on the YouTube page, the Discover event page, and it'll be emailed to you as well, along with the course offer, which we'll talk about later if you RSVP'd for the event. So all that said, proper introduction. Like I said, we are talking to Todd Brison, and we're talking about how to create a book as an additional revenue stream for your business. And we're going to learn how to write a book quickly, what opportunities exist to make money, and how to run Amazon ads profitably to jumpstart a book sales. And a little background on Todd. Todd is a best-selling author who now works as a development editor, helping both business owners and ambitious people turn vague thoughts into nonfiction books that sell well. On that journey, he's collected 75,000 followers online and has written and consulted on many books, one of which was named Business Book of the Year in 2020. Now, Todd, I know you got a lot to show us, and I want to get into it, so I'm going to get out of the way and let you take over.
Right on. You said if Todd's moving fast, and I quickly glanced at my slide deck and saw slide one of 76. So that like 2 slides a minute basically is what we're looking at here. So I do want to jump right in it.
Yeah.
And make sure everybody, gets what they need. First, I'd love to hop into the chat. I know there's some delay, but tell me what you're hoping to learn today. We're going to cover a whole lot, and I'm going to do my best to address the process of book writing from start to assembly to publication and all the little things along the way. But if there's something specific that you are looking for, let me know right now, and I'll do my best to kind of weave it in as we go or pick it out as something to tackle toward the end. I'm looking over here. Brenda turning vague ideas into a book. Yeah, that's perfect. Did you read the page? Did you read the sales page before you came? Because that's almost exactly, I think, what I put. That's great. How to select an idea to develop into a book. That's wonderful. So Melanie, I think pay close attention to section 2. That's going to be super helpful for you as we walk through the steps in that chunk. It's going to help you decide what to develop, what idea to go for. Knowledge of the ebook side. Yes, I started as a self-published author, Kindle exclusive. So only Amazon, only ebooks. That's where I started this whole journey. And so I can touch on that. And Rodney's talking about various ways to market and sell books on Amazon or iBooks. And we'll talk about that as well. How to sell books from the email list. Yep. Wonderful. This is all good ammo for me, good things to keep in mind as we move forward. And so we'll try to tackle those as we go along. So let me set the scene again so we could talk about what I want to accomplish today. Mostly what I want to do, and I've refined this a little bit since Jonah got my first objective. So I'm throwing in a bit of a curveball here. But essentially, I'm going to talk about why you already have what you need to write a book, how to make that process of writing the book as easy as possible, and then how to sell your first 200s of books, even if you don't have any readers, any email list, or anything like that. I'm hoping that that will be a bit of a shortcut at the end that we can use to break through into a market if you've never collected readers before or never sold a book before. Before we get into any of that, though, I have to share my Mr. Miyagi moment. And this is the story that changed not only my entire perception or perspective as a writer, but probably altered the course of my entire career. So it's 2016, and I'm sitting down at my desk again to write what feels like the 1000th draft of my book description for my first book called The Creative's Curse. And anyone who's tried to write a book before can tell you that the book description is a very difficult task, because if you wanted to write one page on a topic, you would have just written the page. You wouldn't have written a whole book. And now the task is to take this whole book and turn it back into a book description. I've spent hours and days and weeks on this thing, trying to improve it little by little, piece by piece. I'm correcting all the punctuation. I'm chunking up paragraphs with short lines. I'm looking for just the right adjectives, and something still doesn't feel right. And I have this dark moment where I'm going, you know what? I don't even think I can release this book after having already written it. I'm sitting on Amazon. Amazon's asking for the description, and I feel like I can't cross that line. So I send it to one of my friends. My friend's name is Kyle. Kyle is an operations manager for several online bloggers and content-based businesses. And it's like, Kyle, man, you got to help me out. Something's not quite right here. I wait a couple of days, and in that time, I'm just going, okay, what's he going to come back with? I'm expecting more small changes. I'm expecting new adjectives. I'm expecting a different order. I'm expecting anything but the response that came back. And the response that came back was maybe the most single impactful email that I've received in my life. And it said, I'm going to try a Mr. Miyagi experiment on you. I said, okay. And he said, what I want you to do is sell me your favorite book and tell me why I should read it. And I'm halfway through the response when I realized that my entire perception of writing a book description has changed. I couldn't have possibly iterated my way there. I needed to think about things completely differently in order to accomplish the task effectively and efficiently. And that's what made me realize that a lot of times big shifts are what matter most. And many of us read these self-help articles, productivity articles, and we understand that, okay, day by day you have to improve. But sometimes day by day isn't enough. It's an entirely different mindset. It's a different perspective that's needed to make the big shift to change the task. So as you exit here, I'm hoping you leave with these 3 big mental shifts to help you tackle the book writing process, even if nothing else helps you along the way. With that said, let's get into the first section, which is you already have what you need to write your book. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to prove it to you right now by referencing a study in 1972. So psychologists John Bransford and Marsha Johnson ran this experiment on how context helps us understand the world. And rather than just like pull up a PDF and read through that or try to explain it, I'm going to actually institute this experiment right now. And we as a group are going to run through it to see how your perception of certain things changes. So get your chat fingers ready. What's going to happen is I'm going to show you some sentences here, and you're going to tell me the underlying theme of all of these sentences. What is it talking about? What's the connector to these sentences? So as you're reading over, again, I know there's a bit of a delay with the chat, but as you're reading over these texts, these sentences, I want you to think about, okay, what is it that ties all of these things together? Newspaper, magazine, first, it's better to run than walk. Young children can enjoy it. Guesses go in the chat. And I'm curious to see what comes out of this, because for me, it took a long time to kind of figure out what the theme was. And then when somebody told me, everything kind of clunks into place. Janice Johnson says, you need an editor. You're probably right. Actually, I think everybody needs an editor. And that's why I am one. They are statements. Wendy, that is true. Let's be a little specific. Let's think about what activity they all have in common. What could they all be referring to? What are these statements talking about? I'm going to give it like maybe 15 to 20 more seconds, and then we're going to move on ahead. Birds seldom get too close. Rain soaks in very fast. Rock serves as an anchor. Aphorisms, maybe they're all that kind of statement. I'm looking for a unifying theme. And I'm sure that a couple more guesses will come in the chat here as we go forward, but I'm going to move ahead and tell you that these are all statements related to flying a kite. And that's a tough one to guess if you're just looking at all of these on their own. Like, yeah, Rodney says advice. Of course, like that's a difficult thing. Statements of fact, says Wendy. Yeah, because you don't have any context for how you're perceiving these. But when you come in with that framework of kite flying, let's look at this list again and see if we can't assemble those thoughts into place around flying a kite. A newspaper is better than a magazine. Now, this is in 1972. They posed these questions. We'd probably just buy a kite from Walmart today. But yeah, newspaper is better for flying. At first, it's better to run than walk. Why? Because you have to get the kite off the ground. Even young children can enjoy it. Why? Because it's an activity for all ages. Once successful, complications are minimal because we're up in the sky and we don't have that many things to get in our way. What's important here is to think about the power of having that framework, having that box to understand what's in front of us. And that, in fact, was the results of the experiment. They learned that whenever they gave participants the framework, that they understood more of the statements, and better yet, they recalled more of the statements after the fact. How does this pertain to book writing? Well, once you have the context of your book, once you know what the book is about, the content will fall into place. And it's kind of like the same effect of when you get a new car. Like my wife and I wanted a Honda Element for the longest time. And because we were thinking about this constantly, we saw them everywhere. And that's the effect of context. That's the effect of looking for a certain thing. Whenever you have a book in mind, whenever you have an idea to write about, everything that you see is going to start assembling itself into place within that book framework. Things you Google, videos you see on Facebook, posts you see on Instagram, updates you see on LinkedIn. They're all now potentially fodder and content for how you put them in your book. And if they're not included in the book, fine. What I love about using a book as context, and one of the reasons I'm constantly writing something, is it helps me organize all of this information I see every day on the internet. Unfortunately, though, that isn't enough. It isn't enough to go, okay, I have an idea for the book. Great. I know things are going to start sticking to this idea like a magnet. But that isn't the only step. It isn't a hard step that you have to take next, but it isn't the only step to just think about the book, as you probably know. Because the truth is, you can't write a book without writing a book. Meaning you can't plan the whole book from start to finish. You have to embrace the random insights that happen along the way. And if you think about that, that makes sense, right? If you could plan your whole book from start to finish, sentence by sentence, chapter by chapter, paragraph by paragraph, you would have already written the book, right? Because you have it planned. But writing is just difficult enough that there's some spontaneity in the process. You have to sit down and write, not only because that's what it takes to write a book, but because that's what it takes to purge your short-term memory of those ideas. So there's this effect called the Zeigarnik effect. And what that effect says is essentially that an interrupted or and that sounds like scientific nonsense, right? Like it's not very helpful on its own. But what I want you to do is put yourself in the last place where you had a task that you needed to complete and you hadn't done it yet. Maybe you set out to do it in the morning, but you got a phone call and then you had to go to the grocery and you had to go to the doctor you're thinking of that task all day. It's like a little fire in your brain because you haven't been able to complete it yet. And that's the Zeigarnik effect at work. It's saying, okay, like, hey, you remember this thing. And what happens then is it's difficult to do anything else because of that idea, that task taking up so much space in your brain. And that's the reason to-do lists are so effective, right? Because the second you write a task down, your brain goes, oh, that's done. Even though it's not really done, but what you've done is purged it from your short-term memory and you know where the information is. Many people will say something to me like, oh, Todd, I'm not worried about writing a book. I have the whole idea in my head. Inevitably, what happens is they sit down to write chapter 1 and then they're spent, because you can't possibly think your way from the beginning to the end of the book. However, once you've written chapter 1, you can start to consider ideas for chapter 2. Once you've written chapter 2, you can start to attract and remember and think about ideas for your next topic. There's a limit to what the brain can hold, and that's why the process of writing is so important. I think it's critical here to remember, if nothing else, especially with the internet, especially with the sheer amount of information and content that all of us see every single day, that the distance between you and a book is so very small that you only need to, one, set the context for that book that you're writing, and then two, begin to write in order to access that material that you have, in order to purge the short-term memory of your initial ideas and continue through to chapters 2, 3, 4, and the other parts of the book. So that's the first big mental shift, is that honestly, there's no such thing as a blank page. I've written 5 books now. I've ghostwritten 1 book that became Business Book of the Year. I'm in the middle of ghostwriting a second book that's going to a traditional publisher. I don't get writer's block. And the reason is because I know that all of these ideas that I want to write about are already there. And even if they're not in my notes or one of these thousands of notebooks that I have on the shelf or in my desk or hidden in under the cat box and all these crazy things, there is information aplenty and ideas abundant. And all you need to do as an author is begin to collect those ideas and put them in some sort of structure. So that's section 1, understanding that your book is pretty much already written the second you decide to move forward with it. The next goal I want to go through is talking about writing a book 3 times easier and faster. Janice, this comment down here, author Anne Lamont says the main thing is to write a crappy first draft. I love pulling that out. And that's actually the topic that I'm going to address right now, is getting through the manuscript much easier and much faster than you could otherwise. Because the truth be told is writing a book is like eating an elephant. It's that horrible cliche that my wife kind of cringes at every time I bring it up, because we love elephants and we love animals. But what they say about eating an elephant is that it can only be done 1 bite at a time. And you have to take it piece by piece or you'll never get it done. Writing a book is like that, except it's much tougher to chew on than an elephant, and sometimes harder to get up in the morning and write than it is to do anything else. And so let's start here with this big mental shift. The single most important task for making it possible to write a book, if you're watching this right now, this is the thing that I want you to perk up and listen to and write it down, because if you leave with nothing else, this is going to change how you approach writing a book. The most important task is to set a word count goal. That's it. A word count goal that you can see, that you can break down into individual pieces, and that you can hit. And many people will go, oh, I want to write like XYZ pages. No, not that. I want to write XYZ chapters. No, not that. A section. I want to write a book. The problem with these terms is that they're not concrete enough to actually execute upon. When you say, I'm going to write a chapter, how long is that? How many pages is that? How many paragraphs is that? You don't know. And so the task kind of expands in your mind and becomes difficult to complete because you can't pin it down. The word count goal is the most effective way to finish a book. And you see this right now if you're on the internet looking at the fiction world at all. This experience, I guess I'm not sure what to call NaNoWriMo. This event, this competition of NaNoWriMo is where hundreds of crazy people, frankly, try to write an entire novel in a single month. And I can affectionately say they're crazy people because I was one of them. And that's where a lot of my writing came into fruition. If you're in the comments right now, I would love to know if you've ever participated in NaNoWriMo or even heard of it. I'm going to keep my eye on there so that I can like give you applause, because even participating in that event is pretty brutal in getting through any of it. But why NaNoWriMo works and why it's so successful and so many people can accomplish the challenge, Wendy, year 3, you go girl, is because they set a specific word goal. They say, okay, write a book in a month. That's too vague. What we're going to do is say, you're going to write 50,000 words in a single month. 50,000 words. So that's roughly 1,667 words every day. And either you're doing it or you're not. And you know that if you miss a day, you got to come back and then write 3,300 words the following day to make up for lost time. Sherry Smith, heard of it. Melanie, Bird by Bird. Yep. Prairie. Yep. Many years ago. Bernadette started and had to quit. Yeah. Brutal. Wendy, it is brutal. And Jen, in your 4th NaNoWriMo, incredible. That's incredible. Oh man. Amazing to watch people who take place in the challenge. It is, right? Because I think there's something so, and I'll try not to, I'm sorry, John, I'm watching the time, I swear. There's something so incredible about banding together with strangers who are all going after the same thing. And it's like an impossible goal. I attended, my father-in-law, 70 years old, ran his 5th Ironman triathlon competition. So it's 2.5 mile swim or something like that, 100 million miles on a bike, and then a whole marathon. And the community around that is so incredible because it's such a hard thing. And that's what's beautiful about NaNoWriMo as a community. What's beautiful as a concept is that they set this word goal into place. So let's pretend like you don't have time for NaNoWriMo. Your life's busier than that. Let's pretend you actually have a life, unlike me and some other people who like to spend our days hunched over keyboards. And let's divide this pace in half. What if you wrote 50,000 words in 2 months? That's 833 words a day. Totally feasible. For most people, the average word per minute for adults, I think, is 60 words a minute or something like that. So for most people, this amount of words, we're talking about 10 to 15 minutes. Jen says building a writing habit is a huge part of NaNoWriMo. Absolutely. Right. So 2 months, 833 words a day, totally doable for anybody. Let's pretend you have a very busy life and you say, you know what? I can't do it in a month. I can't do it in 2 months. Let's do it in 3 months. The math again makes this gettable. We're talking now about 416 words every day. So 5 to 10 minutes every day to have a book in a month. The average person, and look at that, I put it in for myself, can write 416 words in 10 minutes. I'd say you can do it faster than that if you're attending this, because you're probably interested in writing. And I think the question to ask is, for 10 minutes a day, would that be worth the effort to have a book in 3 months? For me, the resounding answer was absolutely. Like, of course it can. Of course, I'll spend a few minutes a day for 3 months to have a book that I can use as a pillar of my future businesses, of my future life, as an intellectual property asset that I can do once and sell over and over and over and over to as many people that will buy it. What an incredible way to spend 3 months. Some people don't think that's enough. So they say, okay, Todd, come on, can the task get easier than that? And the answer is, yeah, sure. Of course it can. Of course it can. Many people don't write books because they seem long and intimidating. A 50,000 word book, and I'll see if I can go find one on the shelf. We'll do it live right here. A 50,000 word book is something like this, right? Like, this is a book called Decisive, Chip and Dan Heath, and we're looking at 300 some odd pages. 40 to 50,000 word book. And that seems intimidating when someone picks a book up off the shelf and they go, I don't know if I can do that. You see books like Game of Thrones and they take up a whole bookshelf by themselves. And it's scary to think about with no words. How do I get to that point? I think the question to ask is, could my book be shorter? And the question on the back of that is, could a short book be meaningful? And as we look at the internet today, we go, of course. But the truth is, short books have been around much longer than our kind of quick attention, task switching culture has been around. You look at books like the 1 Minute series, 1 Minute Manager, 1 Minute Salesman, which is back on my book right now. You look at Who Moved My Cheese. You look at Seth Godin's series of Domino published books. All of these things are tiny and incredibly impactful. So when you ask, how can the task get even easier than it is? You say, okay, why don't we just shorten this down? JT, what a perfect setup to that. What's considered a short book? For a first-time author, 20,000 words is a good length for a nonfiction book. And if you're not an experienced writer, you go, okay, what does that mean in page terms? And that's always a funny question. The reason I don't define pages is because like spacing is always an issue, because publishers want to take up space on a shelf so they can make a short book look like a long one if they want to, or they can make it look short depending on their goals for the book. 20,000 words roughly on a normal, spaced, double spaced page, Google Doc or whatever, around about 200 pages, which seems like a lot, but it's half of that initial goal that we set on the 50,000 words. So what does it take to write a 20,000 word book? Well, let's do the math again. If you do it in 1 month, it's 667 words per day. If you do it in 2 months, if you have that life that some people are telling me about, it's 334 words per day. If you do it in 3 months, it's like 167-ish words per day. And I wrote ish because that's such a small amount that I almost didn't even want to do the math. I was like, sit down and write a text message to your mom level of writing. It's so simple. The average person can write 165 words in 5 minutes, no time. Melanie, I'm seeing, co-wrote a book with her husband, a little 180-page book on bicycling across the US in the 70s. Before GPS and cell phone. Oh, beautiful. Hey, can you send me a link? Jonah, I don't know how we can get the link. I always love to see books of people who attend these and who read my stuff. So Melanie, put a link somewhere so that I can find it, or you can email it to me, Todd@toddbrison.com. I'm seeing Jonah.
I was just going to ask Todd, like, where can people reach out to you if they want to send you that stuff?
You can send me anything from books you've written to book recommendations to like chicken pot pie recipes at Todd@toddbrison.com. That's
specifically chicken pot pie recipes.
Specifically chicken pot pie. I will not accept the beef pot pie recipe in my inbox. Only chicken is the way to go. It's the southern boy in me. I live in Tennessee, so like throw a bunch of food in a pile. That's like,
that's the way to do it. Yep,
that's what we're looking for.
Love it.
Yeah, for sure. JT, you say, what's the standard ebook size? Ask me that again when we get to the end, because I'm not sure. I understand your goal. I want to make sure everybody else gets the whole of this presentation. So for 5 minutes a day, then, would you like to have a book in 3 months? And I think the question hands down is yes. You could probably get anybody to to write a book for 5 minutes a day, even if they hadn't have thought about it before. The ultimate lazy person looks at this new math, they look at this new pitch and they go, okay, Todd, come on. Can the task get even easier than that? And the answer is like, yeah, sure. Can it get easier than 5 minutes a day? Yeah, of course it can. How? Well, the fact is that a lot of writing is thinking, not typing. Rodney, I see your macaroni pie recipe. I will accept macaroni pie recipes in my inbox. The actual work of writing is thinking and not the typing process, that you have to dream of what you're going to write before you write it. And so the question to ask when you go, how can the task get even easier than 50,000 words in a month, even easier than 20,000 words in a month? And you say, okay, what do I do to reduce my thinking time? How can I shorten that distance between confusion or vague idea to concrete idea, to what I'm actually going to write about? And I walk through a few simple steps here. The first one is to write about a topic you understand thoroughly. There's a famous quote in the writing and publishing world that says, write about what you know. This is that axiom in different language. Because the truth is, until you can sit down and explain an idea in your own words, you don't truly understand it. So the nonfiction writer's job really is just to learn and connect ideas and explain them to people. The more ideas you have, the deeper your understanding. And the deeper your understanding, the better chance at writing a really good book. And that's why writing a book is the result of your career is just an excellent choice, because it's likely you've learned enough lessons to just sit down and put it on paper. The second piece is around the audience of your book, and a simple, like, kind of hackish shortcut to that answer is to write to your past self. I mentioned right now I'm working on a book with a client, and this guy has a lot of credentials. He's worked with he's a boy genius kind of thing. So he started his career at 15. Very cool story. But we started looking at who his audience might be, and he said, "You know what? I think it's me 10 years ago." And for a lot of you, that's probably a perfectly acceptable audience avatar, like this primary audience to keep in mind. Writing to your past self helps you unlearn what you've learned along the way. Because when you think, okay, what do I wish I had known at age 40, 30, 20, 15, you know what to say and what not to say. And you know how to speak to your 25-year-old self on the level that they were at the time. So write about something you understand thoroughly, write to your past self. And the third way to reduce your thinking time is to build a rock solid outline before you actually start the draft process. Now, a lot of us in school got kind of mixed up with that outline process, because it's like, oh, here's my point. Here are the A, B, and C big points. Underneath each of these big points are some little points that I'm going to make. And that's very formulaic and doesn't necessarily allow for all of the content that can belong in a book. So I'm going to present a few kind of staple go-to outlines that I use for structures to help me think about how I'm going to put together an idea. And the first structure is the acronym. Essentially, you take all of your information, all the ideas that you want to do, and you present a word to help your audience remember what that is, what the concepts are. So in the case of Chip and Dam Heath, what do you know? Apparently, I refer to this book a lot. Decisive has a 4-part structure, and it's WRAP is the acronym. Widen your options, reality test your assumptions, attain distance, and prepare to be wrong. These are the 4 sections of the book, and in each section, they teach a different principle for deciding. The second outline is the classroom, which is where you essentially teach everything you know in chronological order. You must do this before you do that. And a perfect example is another book I'm working on with a client. His name is David Maddow. He wrote a book called How to Become the Neighborhood Millionaire. Excellent book. I highly recommend you go read it right away. But this is the beginning of his table of contents. It's straight up classroom. He says, you need to know how to dream before you do anything else. You need to turn that dream into goals. You need to set your net worth so you know where you are. You need to be warned about some pitfalls before you start sprinting down the road. And then you go into, okay, living above your means is a problem. Here's how to set a budget. Here's how to use it, and so on and so forth. So we've got the acronym. We've got the classroom. And then finally, we have the listicle. Many romantic writers, myself included, will scan the internet for 3 seconds and go, oh my God, people have to be so burned out on listicles. And to those people, I would bring up a little document that people have been referring to for a long time called the 10 Commandments. And then something that's been developed in our history, and it doesn't matter, Christian or not, you think about that and you go, oh, wait a minute. Like, if we've been telling the story of the 10 things for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe it's just wired in our DNA that we need stuff to be packaged like that. And that's why when you and me, romantic writers who want things to be beautiful and flowery and wonderful, look and see the flood of listicles, you can rest assured that they'll never go away. And that's pretty much self-explanatory what a listicle is. But I have to bring up one of the most successful books of all time, which is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Not chronological lessons, no cute acronyms. It's just, here are these things that you can do. Those are the frameworks for an outline, which is one of the frameworks of thinking faster, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to remember to use our past self as an audience. We're going to talk about something we know well, and we're going to outline before we write to think faster. So you have your word count, you have your thinking faster, and maybe you're the laziest person of all time. And you're asking me again, okay, Todd, you're like, fine, whatever. Can it get even easier than that? And the answer is yeah. Like, of course. You could write a book by tomorrow afternoon if you really wanted to, following all of these things and following what I call the final hack, which is to use your existing content. I think the laziest way to write a book in the world is to like print off all of your blog posts and staple them together and sell them. But then again, I watch people basically print the transcripts of their podcasts and sell tens of thousands of copies. And so again, this is some philosophy here. I love for unique content to be in my books, but I will always start with existing content or existing notes that I've already written. Even if you're not a blogger, scan your Facebook posts, scan your LinkedIn updates, Twitter posts, whatever it is, and start from there. The ultimate enemy to a book is the blank page. Hopefully, with this second mental shift, you've seen how to eliminate that as soon as possible. I have a thing here that says questions about book writing. What I'm going to do is blow through that to get through these final 20 odd slides in 8 minutes. So far we've talked about section 1, which was how to assemble a book. Section 2, different presentation. Section 1, which was understanding the book's already in you. Section 2, which is reducing that time to book completion as short as possible. And then now let's talk about how to sell books with no readers. And this is kind of handy because we're at the end of the presentation, but I'm going to spoil it right away. The best thing you can do right now with no readership, no fans, no anything else is start advertising on Amazon as soon as you get the book finished. And actually you can do it sooner because you can, that would be my cat knocking the cover of the book Decisive off of the desk. You can start advertising on Amazon as soon as you have a book for pre-sale. Amazon has done an incredible job of connecting their self-publishing platform with their advertising dash. And writers especially don't believe me when I say this, because advertising sounds so harsh. Like you think of Don Draper, who's like, what you call love was invented by me to sell nylons. And that's just a shuddery, horrible thing to think about when you're thinking about your book. But Amazon advertising is a great way to get readers as soon as possible. And it's cost effective. You could spend $5 on Amazon advertising tomorrow and start to see some results. The reason this is so effective is because Amazon essentially acts as a search engine. Many people who come to Amazon don't know exactly what they're looking for. And Amazon itself has said 66% of all book shoppers start their journey in the search bar. When someone searches, there's advertisements placed right there. So what does that mean for us? That means that more than half of the time, someone is probably browsing for Amazon looking for something non-specific, which is great news for you. The second reason these are so effective is because, like I said earlier, Amazon is terrible at spending your money. Unlike Facebook or Google, who can blow through it all in a couple of days, Amazon's biggest problem is that it has trouble spending your money. And in my ad agency, I have more trouble scaling spending money on profitable books than I do like spending too much. And that's because Amazon, one reason for that is because Amazon charges per click and impressions are free. My books have been seen millions and millions of times. Number of clicks are a little piece of that. Number of conversions and buys are even less than that. So the important part of running an ads is just writing great copy, hooks, and book descriptions. And since you're a writer, that's no problem for you, or it's going to be much easier than it is to try and become a advertising expert. You don't have to be an advertising expert to understand Amazon ads. Here's the guilty party who's knocking books off of my desk while I wind down into Amazon ads. Essentially, you can run 3 types of ads in the Amazon ad dashboard. You've got sponsored products, you've got sponsored brands, and you've got lock screen ads. If you have more time than money, take a little time and teach yourself sponsored keyword ads. Generate some ads, run on keywords, and then see what comes back. If you have a little more money than time, run lock screen ads. These are ads that will literally show up when someone picks up their Kindle. They can see your book cover. And that's a pretty incredible power that not many advertisers can offer, except for TV, which charges millions and millions of dollars to be seen. And if you're a business that has 3 or more books and act as lost leads for gaining clients or doing other businesses, then your best choice is to run, or a good choice is to run, sponsored brand ads. One thing to keep in mind, 3 minutes left, is that Amazon ads don't sell to the highest bidder. They sell to the most relevant keywords. And that makes sense because Amazon needs to stay in business. If they're just selling their keywords to the highest bidder, searchers don't get relevant results. They start to leave the site and buy less books. There's a downward spiral until Amazon is out of business, or only doing however many billion instead of 10x that. So there is one thing I want you to keep in mind, and we don't have a ton of time to get into the nitty gritty of Amazon ads, but if you're looking to have a high ROI, never pick the suggested bid. This is how Amazon makes up for not spending your money very well, is I think the suggested bids are always higher than what's necessary to sell your book. And I'm proving that by looking at a few of my own ads running here. This is a call to relevance as opposed to money. You're seeing the suggested bid on the left side of your screen in that first circle. And then on the other side is what I'm actually spending to get results on the ad. And next to that, you can see impressions and then clicks that I'm driving with just a fraction of the cost of what Amazon has suggested. So finally, winding down here, I challenge everyone with a book to go on Amazon ads today and start running ads and just see how it goes. With this quick start, you can do it in a matter of seconds. Set up your book, scroll down. So, okay, let me back up. Advertising.amazon.com. Log in with your account, start an ad, choose your book, and then scroll all the way down where Amazon will give you its suggested keywords. Using suggested keywords is great because it's pulling the metadata out of your book to give you very relevant results and without you having to do any research. Don't use the suggested bid, but use the suggested keyword. And then for those of you who can run lock screen ads, the interest targeting is your only choice, which is actually an incredible burden lifted because you're only looking at categories and not keywords. So you can see here on my side, I'm working with David. We're running a few of these categories within the business and money section. So finance, entrepreneurship and small business, and then personal finance down below. The one final concrete piece of advice I'll give on Amazon ads, if you're getting started today, I said don't use suggested bids. What should you use? Stick with a 35-cent to 40-cent bid. And if you want to be even more conservative than that, you can. But there's a phenomenon called the Amazon flop, where Amazon will say, okay, nice bid, and then never, ever run it. So watch for that as you start these bids. Wonderful. That is it for me. I'm looking over here at some comments. I'm looking for Jonah's face to pop up above my head. There he is.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just thank you. I love it. The putting it into the math makes it just like, why haven't I written a book yet?
Yeah.
Or even like, I have a practice of writing in my own life, journaling and otherwise, but I didn't I wasn't writing a book. I was just writing for 5 minutes a day. It's so cool to put that into like how you can actually output something. I love that. But we do have a few questions coming in and stuff. And please, everyone, hop in the chat and add any questions. We have Todd for a little bit longer before we have to wrap up today. But I did want to talk a little bit more about you're offering a course today. What does that course walk you through? What's kind of the process for it? Can you give us an overview of it?
Yeah, wonderful. So essentially, the course I've done with my business partner in Australia, his name is Tim Denning. We put this together. It's the Amazon self-publishing shortcut, and we talk about pretty much everything that I didn't have time to get into today. Everything from nailing down your book concept to finding a cover for little to no budget, or like working that whole process, because when it comes to Amazon, especially, your conversion rates almost live and die on your cover, and so you want to get that right. We talk about advertising in depth. So there are, trying to think now, I think a series of 4 lessons where we just go into my dashboard and we do the whole process from scratch and take a look at all of that. Those are the 3 big kind of bullets to get in. It's more information, right? More context around what this is. And also we have a Slack community that runs on the back of it. A bunch of writers in there chatting, promoting each other's books, buying each other's books, giving feedback and that sort of thing. So it's the coupling of more information, more in-depth information, and also kind of the real-time engagement with myself, with Tim, and other writers who are doing this.
That's awesome. And then also, as we could say, there's a discount for this week.
Yeah, however long. Yep, when the promo is running, you could insert discover_books at checkout on that page, and you'll get the big discount, almost half off of here for you guys to run the Discover conference. So
yeah, we appreciate it. And also, I believe if you go through the link that's in the comments or the description, that is automatically applied just for the next week. If not, there's that discount code for you. And so it sounds like, I like to ask, because it sounds like this is definitely a course for people who like writing, right? It's not teaching you how to write. You already are writing. Here's how to actually like make a product out of it, right?
Yes, essentially, and we're still like we target mostly bloggers and writers who already have some content. The angle there being that we want to leverage what they already have, right? So that's the big pitch for the course. So we don't spend a whole lot of time on like how to write a good sentence, right? Like we don't go granularly. It's more about the compiling of it all, the technicalities of all, the marketing of it all. And then for those who are like, look at Amazon and go, oh my gosh, like where do I even start with all the freaking steps? Because they're a huge company that grew too fast and combined too many platforms, and now it's a huge mess. We have all of that in there as well. So less on the writing, more on the publishing, marketing, etc.
Right. And actually putting it into a book, right? Rather than just, Awesome. Well, I want to get into a couple of the questions I saw pop up, and one was JT. You acknowledged it a little earlier, but trying to differentiate, like, is there a different word count or different length that's ideal for a ebook? So JT was asking, what's the standard ebook size looking to create a digital guide to help people start a business?
JT, I'm going to give you an answer that I hate to get, which is that it depends.
Right.
The guidance I could give you, and so if I were to pull up my Amazon screen here and look at all of their categories and browse through there, they have specific sections to categorize reads of like 30 minutes or less, 60 minutes or less, 90 minutes or less. You can see all of these categories. So there's no, especially when it comes to Amazon, there's no like minimum thing to hit. If someone reads it and you've written a page and not, I promise more than a page, if there's a disconnect there and you get 1 million 1-star reviews, well, you probably should have seen that coming. But there's no, I bought and read 2,500 word books on Amazon. I bought and read 100,000 word books on Amazon. I think if your goal is to create a guide to help people start a business, I would decide what depth you're going to go to
Mm.
and then go all in on that. Like, are you going to teach people just the high level principles with no case studies? If so, that's probably like you can probably do that in what, 10 to 15,000 words, right? And there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that. So again, it's timeline for yourself, it's what you want to hit, and those kind of give you the amount that you want to write on.
So really deciding on the product is what
Yeah,
determines. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yep.
Cool.
That's it.
And just a follow-up question I'm thinking about there, is there like if you're really minded about like providing the most value, creating something people want, like, do you have a recommendation for figuring out what people want? If they want the case studies, if they want this within a certain topic, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so if you have an existing readership, this is obviously way easier because you can just
Hmm.
like
Right, right.
or even with some of the books that I wrote later, I asked, I said, what do you want to see next to my list, which isn't massive, right? It's 5,000 people, but that gives me some guidance on where to go. Amazon has, or there's a service run by a friend of mine. His name is Dave Chesson. It's called Publisher Rocket, and you can Google that right now if you want to take a look at it. Because I'm not smart enough to have my affiliate code here and ready. But that product is designed to compile keyword research. And so if I were to type in, I don't know, creativity, a result I might get is daily creative motivation. And there are 1,200 searches a day for Amazon on that, and there are no competitors. So that's a tool that can help you like figure out where you might be able to fit in the market if you don't have a readership. Yeah, I was about to say good old fashioned, just like looking for hours and hours can help
Sure.
too, but it doesn't tell you what people are searching for. That's where Publisher Rocket kind of fills the gap.
Right, right. Cool. And then an interesting question, because it can be contentious.
Yeah,
I know we're here to talk about Amazon, so
yeah,
that's what we're doing. But might as well ask, like Matthew Long is asking, are there any alternatives to people who aren't interested in working with or supporting Amazon?
yeah. So first of all, let's kind of put that in context for anybody who might not know. And the data point that I pull out of this whole conversation is that Amazon and libraries have a conflict. And I have kind of an inherent problem with that because of the services that libraries provide to civilization. And
Right.
so Amazon has been signaling that they want to eat the whole world. Basically, they want to be like the library. They don't want you to go to the library and get the book for free. They want you to like spend your money there. That is one example of many monopoly adjacent sort of moves that they've made. So for anyone unaware, I think Matthew, and you could give me more context if you want. I think that's where you're coming from, like that angle of just not wanting to feed that massive what Amazon is. The alternative is to publish yourself. My first version of a book or a version, that wasn't my first. I went Amazon first, but then the next launch, I just did PDFs and I used Gumroad, which is a different tool to help you sell directly to a readership. And so that process goes, you blog, social media, partner with other content creators, whatever you have to do to get some readership, go on Twitter, whatever it is that like gets you some attention, and then just sell direct. There's almost no, actually, I would argue there are fewer technical hurdles for that. Gumroad is stupid easy. And if you can use Google Docs, you can export that to a PDF. Bada bing, you have a book. There's a little friction with, again, getting the cover. You have to have that problem solved, but you can sidestep Amazon all you want.
Well, do you mean just like designing a cover and
Sure.
stuff like that?
Yeah.
So would you recommend going to like Upwork or sources like that for those, or is it worth having a deeper understanding of what you're writing to get that?
I would spend, if I had $1,000 to spend on book promotion, I would spend 960 of it on the cover.
10 to go to
Yeah,
lunch, 5 to grab some gum, right?
that's right. Like, I mean, like that is it. That's the ultimate. The
Uh,
problem with writing a book is that you love what's in the book. The problem when you sell that book is then everything is marketing. All of it, all of it, all of it, all of it. Description, cover, positioning, categories, ideal reader. That whole thing is a completely separate project, and it's not romantic, and it's not fluffy, and it's not fun because you got to move this book. And so the number one kind of tool you can use to make that happen and stand out from other books is the cover. There are some horrendous covers on Amazon. There are 20 million plus books that have been self-published, and some of them are truly devastating because it's something I drew. Like, it looks like something I drew in paint, like MS Paint in eighth
yeah,
grade.
yeah.
Yeah, if you got Photoshop chops and you need to start there, of course, fine, right? Like, you use what you have. I started on, no, I didn't even do that. I had a friend. I was like, hey, can you like draw me a cover for free? And that was it. And it was a horrible cover, but because
Right.
it gave me enough momentum to update the cover to get the next one, which is what you see here is on my second book's cover, and you go from there. I would funnel every dollar I made back into better covers until
Well,
I
that's
was happy with. Yeah.
it's funny how I didn't even really think of it that way, but like I was in Paris recently at Shakespeare and Company, which is a famous bookstore.
Yeah.
But
Love
I walked in and I was seeing like I bought 3 books or so that I had already owned, classic books, but because
Yes.
they
New
had
covers.
special covers there, and I was like,
Yeah.
you got me. That's
Yeah.
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 Um, yeah, so that's fascinating. I want to make sure we get through these questions here.
Of course.
Um, so, great question. And just in general, we get this question about all sorts of things. How do you price yourself? But specifically from LB Academy, how do you arrive at your book pricing?
I'm trying to decide like how blanket of advice to give.
Is it
It,
that specific? Like it really should be catered to?
yeah. I mean, yeah, to a point. Now there's less range to
Mhm.
which you can do it in Amazon. Like, it's not like you can decide, oh, this is going to be a luxury product. It's going to be like the Louis Vuitton of books, and I'm going to charge $1,500 for it. It like doesn't work just because of our like price anchors and because of what Amazon limits.
Oh, they don't let you charge 1,500 bucks for it?
If you self-publish through Amazon, the limit for Kindle books is, no, I take that back. If you self-publish through Amazon and take the 70% cut, which I would recommend, the highest they let you charge for a Kindle book is $9.99.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm not sure if there's a cap for the paperback book,
Gotcha.
but there's definitely one for the Kindle book. How do you arrive at your book pricing? It has nothing to do with the length, and everything to do with the impact for your ideal audience,
Hmm.
um, and your other goals. So I have a friend I've been talking with who trades on the Forex market, like the foreign exchange market. That's what he's done for years and years, has a series of books about it. He sells the Kindle book for like $4.99. And in theory, if someone really does master the skills that he gets in there or that he gives away for free, they're going to earn 10,000x what they paid for that book. But
Ah,
his strategy is a little differently. So someone talked about running a guide for starting a business. I would have absolutely no qualms pricing that, a digital version of that, for $20, like, and sell direct, right? Because Amazon won't let you do it, but sell direct from your website, get customers, going to pay $20 from the book. There's no reason not to do that, especially when you're going digital and you have no manufacturing
right.
costs. Your margin is $20 because it's, or minus like 2.5 whatever Gumroad takes out of the sale. But yeah, I think it's the decision of, am I trying to sell as many of these as possible to whoever I can, or am I trying to use this as a lead for clients?
Right.
and maybe in that case you'd want to weed out certain people. I personally, I would never sell a book for 99 cents anymore. At the beginning, I just thought, oh, that's the best way to move books. What it got was just a lot of low quality readers and not really fans. So that's
Right.
why I said I'm trying to think about how much blanket advice. If you're going Kindle, $4.99 is a good break, because that like $5 tier does something weird in our brains. And then if you're going to go above $5, I would probably just go to $7.99.
Hmm.
And then with paperback books, self-published, you get 60% of that. I would probably price between $14.99 and $19.99. And this assumes that that's the book that we kind of framed up earlier in this session, 20 to 50,000 words,
Right.
nonfiction, solving a problem or giving specific advice.
But and so it sounds like really like the key thing to focus around is, other than those other elements about like length and stuff, is like transformation.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
charging for the transformation.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. It's not a simple question ever. So I appreciate the
No,
nuance. Yeah.
it's not that for someone like me. So in context, I'm a writer. Writers historically have just been poor. Like that's just how it is. And I grew up again, middle class, Tennessee, tiny town. The thing that I've always had to tell myself is price it higher than you think you should. That's it. Like that,
Right.
that's what I always like. Whatever you feel comfortable at, then go up another, I don't know, 50%. Because
Right.
it's not going to turn people away.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, Janice. Print on demand books.
Oh, Janice is asking, yeah, are you talking about print on demand books? And
Yeah.
then also, Wendy's got just to tack on, because it was with what we're talking about. What about audiobooks?
Yeah,
The
that's a great.
production qualities,
Yeah,
a lot
that is
more, right? It's
oh my gosh, that is a phenomenal question, because you can mess up an audiobook real bad. The barrier to entry for an audiobook versus a written book, right, with equipment versus like a keyboard and a computer, the number of people who can get to that appropriate amount of quality is much lower when you're talking about an audiobook.
it's gonna cost you some money to
Yes.
put out. Yeah.
Either money or expertise. My first, so I'll go at this kind of backwards, Wendy, and tell you like my background, and then we'll get to like the price. Because I worked as a video editor for a long time, I had some knowledge of like what good audio sounds like. My first audiobook I recorded in my basement with an $80 mic that I bought from the proceeds of my Kindle book pre-sale, and I used a old cat bed as like a sound muffler. And
I love that.
the reason I can say that and not know that like it won't get swatted down everywhere is because Audible has a minimum quality standards. Like they'll actually have someone. That's why it takes so long to get it up, because they actually have to listen to it and go, "Is this worthy of being on our platform?" And it passed that check. And so like and that's, I don't know if I'd even recommend that, but if you have some idea of what good audio takes to produce, you can do it yourself. If you're talking about like studio or getting a narrator or someone else to read that, then you're starting to like tick up the dollars and write some bigger checks.
Neil Gaiman isn't cheap.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. I was trying to think of who would read mine, like Jason Segel.
That's your go-to.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why. That's who I'm thinking about today. He'd be my
Love it.
As far as price, Wendy, so the audiobook market is so interesting because Amazon had an enormous jump on everybody else, and they just chewed up everything with Audible. Like I'm trying to think of like the reason I think it's 85% of the market right now, or something, maybe even more than that. And the reason I struggle with statistics is because Amazon is so big, and this alludes to what we talked about earlier, that they have to hide how big they are because they don't want to be sued. Like they don't want to be disbanded. So they're like sketchy about what they report.
Maybe we're this big. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like, we did approximately this. So they got a head start on everyone. If you go Audible with your audiobook, they have fixed cost then it's based on length. You don't get to make that decision. So I think my creative's curse is like 3 hours. The price is stuck at $5.95 because that's Audible's like structure.
Oh, they don't let you custom price it.
Correct. So the longer
Oof.
the book, the higher the price. Period.
So it's all marketing then. You just have to move
Yeah.
product to
They-
oh wow.
Yeah, and I can say that book specifically is done pretty well in an audio format, and I think one of the reasons is because I got on Audible early, and people were buying those subscriptions where you got free credits, you got to spend it on something. There's limited inventory at that point in 2016, and so like, you know, I got early sales, which have continued to help me stay at the top of those. The top portion of those rankings. Like now it's like, okay, it's like Todd or Kevin Hart's book. I don't know. Like, what should I choose with my free credit?
But you're sharing the pool.
Yeah. But the last point, I promise I'll shut up about audiobooks, is there are other competitors kind of getting in this arena now. So Costco is starting to sell audiobooks. Find a Way Voices is a company that you should Google, that is starting to do the same structure as Audible, where you can produce your own and upload and sell it. And it makes sense. And that's exciting for me because like more options for indie authors means lower price, bigger distribution, and a lot more benefits everywhere.
Totally.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Well, because it is part of it. I appreciate you diving into audiobooks because it's so like it's I would like to say I'm still an avid reader, but like I was an avid reader as a kid and I'm an avid listener now, but it's like it's an important realm to cover. And it's often if I'm traveling or stuff, it's like if I want to read something, I'm always looking at least if that option is available. And I might buy both and experience it both ways. But yeah.
I said I'd say the last thing. Apparently I hadn't. When I added an audiobook version to my Kindle book version, my sales doubled per month. And then when I added a paper book version on top of that, they doubled again. And so some of that's more options. Some of it's just perception on Amazon. You go, oh, this is a real book because there are many formats. So
right. Yeah. It looks more legitimate on top of like a valuable offer. That's cool. Yeah.
Humans bizarre. Yeah.
We only have time for a couple more questions, but I did want to get to two here. The first, I just sure he's asked twice here. So I have a children's book on Amazon. Is it still a good idea to run an ad for it or just pre-sell books like for ads? And just in general, like, is running ads good for every like genre, every style? If you already have a book, is it good? Like, can you expand a little more on like, is there maybe the question really is there any situation where running ads isn't good, assuming you have a budget for it?
No. No, because worst case scenario, what it does is give you data. And I'll kind of walk through how I think about that. If I have impressions, but I'm not getting many clicks, and I'm using many vaguely. So nonfiction book click-through rates. Wow, I'm doing all this from memory. Nonfiction book click-through rates are something like it's much smaller than you'd expect. So it's something like 0.1 to 0.3 click-through rates. Like 0.3 would be, I'd be like, woohoo, that's incredible. If you're getting those impressions, but you're not getting many clicks, what that means is you either have a targeting problem or you have a cover problem. So check out when you start to run the ads, check out and what I said, everybody should run ads. Take $20, just throw it in Amazon and see what happens, because it's going to give you invaluable information on how you're presenting your book. So a lot of impressions, not a lot of clicks. Again, bad targets or bad cover. If you're getting clicks, and I don't know, I try not to draw any big conclusions until I'm getting like 200 to 500 clicks, really, just because of all the variance that happens in like statistical analysis. But if you're getting clicks, I use math words there. I don't want to scare away the writers. If you're getting clicks but not purchases, what that means is you have a description problem. meaning your book description is not compelling to those well-targeted people who landed on your page, looked at the cover, looked at the description, and said, not interesting.
So you can kind of figure out where in between like the person seeing it and buying your book where the problem is.
Yes, you can walk. Yeah, you basically just walk all the way through and see where the process breaks.
That's such an interesting way of thinking of it, though, because I've never thought of like ads in that way, where it's like, I think typically we think of ads as like, pay for it, get it out, make sales, and not like this is an investment in getting random eyes on my product to like refine the sale process. That I love the way you put that. Yeah,
absolutely. Because think about it, like the readers are already there. They're already on Amazon or whatever you have. I'm thinking of Matthew now. Whatever site.
Right.
I hope other sites will launch advertising platforms too. But if you go with Amazon, not only do they have millions of readers looking at the site every day, they also have like their buying preferences tracked through their Amazon accounts. And so they know what they'll want to read. Not only can someone like Sherry, if someone like reads your children's book, loves it, follows you on Amazon, people forget you can follow authors on Amazon. Anytime I follow you on Amazon, Amazon sends me an email that you have a new book. So imagine that, like you don't run any campaigns. It's just Amazon selling the book for you because they know what you're like because they have that much data. And so that's why I would not hesitate to run ads. And truth be told, Jonah, you said, oh, it's an investment. Honestly, it's probably both. Just because of how limited, like how small the buy-in is right now on Amazon, impressions are free. So you could spend a quarter and get 10,000 impressions, and that would show you everything.
Might be worth, right?
Yeah.
And at least your cover gets in front of that many people, right? That's
the story. I'll wrap. The story I always tell is that Ray Dalio has a book called Principles. He's apparently this legendary investor. I had never even heard of him until I saw his book advertised to me on Amazon. So if you're in the pocket of like running a business, now you have a book, you want to run some ads, sales might not mean that much to you if you already have a business. You know what would mean a lot to you? Getting in front of readers who are interested in what you do. Now, ads are not just a sales mechanism. They're a lead generator to people who are already well targeted.
Right. Yeah. Right. And there's no other time in history where you could have reached people so ready to.
Incredible. Sherry, I swear, John, I won't do this every time.
No, you're good.
Sherry, I advertised for a book a friend of mine wrote called Cinder Toot, which was about a farting princess who like captured the attention of some prince who then went around like instead of fitting shoes, you can imagine like what he had to do to try and identify which princess. Hilarious book. We ran after that and got good results. So. A friend who works for like licensing company told me that like farts and cats are at the top of what everyone's looking at, so no surprise there. But anyways, just to wrap up for the day, just to kind of bring it back to your course, and then we'll have to call it quits. But will the course offering help one to develop a ready to publish product? Yes. What I didn't mention before is some of the bonus content we have in the course is a KDP template. So KDP is Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing platform. This template is designed so that you can literally like copy and paste your words into the document and then go upload it to Amazon without having to think about all of these other things. We also give you like the ideal cover specs for all of that. My first book, like I said, I had a friend do it. We were half a pixel off and we didn't understand like what was happening until so all those details are handled. But the goal of the course is to have people go from nothing to book within and then, beyond that, selling the book within the course of the material. So, that's the goal, is to give you something you could publish and run with.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Todd. We do have to wrap up just for time, but I appreciate you so much. Appreciate the effort you put into, on top of just creating the course, just putting together a presentation like this and walking through how doable. I forget. I've heard this statistic multiple times, but it's a ridiculous amount of people in this country who every New Year's say like, "I'm gonna write a book this year,"
Yeah, this is
and
the
no.
year. Yeah.
But like, can it get any easier? 5 minutes for 3 months, and you can have it, especially if you're already writing. I love and appreciate that mentality. So
Yeah,
thank you so much. And for
of course.
everyone watching, please hop in the chat. Let Todd know how much you appreciate him. And if you're watching the replay as well, hop in the chat. We do come back and look at those comments. And I saw you make a face. Was there something else you wanted to say?
No, I was like, oh, I didn't say anything about the replay. I meant to say it throughout. It's okay.
Oh, we're good. For all those watching the replay, you're appreciated, and
That's
we
right.
do. We
We
do.
love you too, I
We
promise.
love you too. No, I love it. And if you enjoyed this event, please like and subscribe to the Discover channel. We're trying to consistently bring more creators and entrepreneurs and great minds like Todd out here to grow the community and help us all learn how to do all of the things we want better and build a business out of it, or just if it's what we love, do it better. And please look in the description. We have a link for this full week of Discover events. We have the schedule, and you can sign up for specific events and also just see what we've offered so far. You can go and watch those videos and what's coming in the next few days. All of that said, we appreciate you so much. Thank you, Todd, once more for being with us, and we'll see you all soon.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jonah.
See you later.
Cheers.